that. We have to go with the vote on. If we have the deacons, the name of that one down is blocked. Okay. Why are you saying that? Hey.
Everybody, we are live streaming now, so I'd like to welcome you all. Do we have any apologies, please?
Do, Chair, yes, we have apologies from councillors Jan Bergman, Helen Toft and Richard Nickinson.
And could I ask, are there any declarations of interest, please? Oh, you've got voting.
Yeah.
Right, could I have a proposer for the people who are not here and a seconder, please? Hello? Yes, sorry,
And the seconder,
was.
Ryan Hope.
Yeah. And then a vote. Yes, could we vote on that, please?
I'm voting.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Is it
6,
taken
7,
away?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Right, okay. Could I just ask that everybody sits down? Because I think I've counted councillor Firm 3 times so far, and there is only one of you. Thank you.
One, two.
Approving the apologies, please, Chair, councillors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 8.
Classic.
It's really fine. Don't worry.
Just in case anybody doesn't want to
I
do it.
don't know. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, Chair. Against.
Yes. Yes, against, please. Is anyone against the, no? Abstentions? No. 1. Oh, 1. 1.
Oh, we're not. Didn't hear that because that.
Right. Are there any declarations of interest, please?
We've had none notified, Chair, and no councillors for sort of dispensation of this meeting. Thank you.
And could we all agree the minutes of the last meeting? Could I have a proposal, please? Yes, David Gray. And a seconder. Yeah. And all those in favor, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Thank you. Against? Any abstentions, please?
That is 2. Thank you. So they are agreed, Chair, and you may sign them at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Right, do we have any questions and statements, please?
We do. We have a question from councillor Huckle.
Thank you. May I ask if the mayor, I know she's very interested in football,
Yes.
if she would send a congratulation communication to Weymouth Football Club for their great escape. Very similar to the film.
I have actually sent a private one.
On behalf of the council, avoiding relegation by winning their last 3 matches, including having to overcome a deficit of 7 points.
Yes.
That the team unfortunately lost. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Any announcements? Right, I've had a very, very busy couple of months. Lots of interesting days out. Lots of visits to churches. I haven't lost too many items of my personal clothing and things, which shoes and that sort of thing. I have left a pair of gloves behind in one of the churches, but yeah, it's been good. I had a very nice evening last night with the photography club. That was interesting. Very clever they are, you know. But all in all, it's been busy and it's been fun. Thank you. Right, do we have any questions from the public, please? No. You can do it. Yes. Now pass over to the town clerk, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, next item before you is endorsement of the release of the draft Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan. So before you tonight is the initial draft of the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan, a draft, if you will. The actual draft will be coming in front of you in some months prior to public consultation, but the reason it's coming to you tonight is that an initial draft is required and it must be approved by the council to enable a strategic environmental assessment on the document to be performed. There will be further opportunities for both the council and the public to comment on the draft plan to refine the actual content. However, this initial step is merely to enable the environmental assessment to be carried out at this early stage so the plan can progress through the next stages. Members of the steering group will speak in turn about sections of the neighbourhood plan and will take questions when they finish. More general questions and discussions can be addressed after the last presenter, Chair. If I may just give a little bit of history on how we got to this stage. So back in 2020, we held some public meetings and asked for volunteers to step forward and join a steering group. We had 4 councillors and 7 members of the public. Currently, Councillor David Northam is the chair, and previously it was Councillor Lucy Hamilton, and before Lucy it was Sandy Wilson. The group is supported by Paul Weston as our neighbourhood plan consultant, and Paul is with us tonight as well. Councillor Huckle and Councillor Weaving are also members of the steering group, and I know you know those, but I wonder, Chair, if I may invite the members of the steering group to introduce themselves in turn.
Yes, please.
So, Colin Marsh, please.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Colin Marsh, lived in Sutton Point, part of the Weymouth area for the last 16 years. Been involved in the Sutton Point neighbourhood plan, so I came to get involved in the steering group for the Weymouth plan. So I've got punishment there, but pleased to have been involved in that process from the beginning and to have shared some of that experience. And sit on the group as the theme lead for the landscape and green spaces, and currently the vice chair of the steering group. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy Wilson, is Sandy with tonight? Sandy's been unable to make it. Rob Cheeseman.
Good evening, Rob Cheeseman. I'm a resident volunteer on the steering group and I'm the theme lead for sustainable environment.
Thank you.
Laura Wood, please.
Hi, evening. My name's Laura Wood. I became involved in the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan right at the start, back in March 2020. And my main role really has been engaging with communities, but specifically school engagement. So it's been a huge privilege to actually get into the schools and actually gather ideas and their inspirations from young people. Firm believer that, you know, it's a fabulous place to live, but the young people have a very important objective to actually add to this plan. And some of their ideas are definitely in this initial draft. So very, very pleased with that. The schools that were approached, you know, we've got a lot of schools in the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan area. We actually managed to engage with over 500 students across the Weymouth area. And they've incorporated it into their citizenship programme and geography, Key Stage 3. So thank you to all of the schools that did engage with that neighbourhood plan. And certainly I really hope that by being involved, they will actually take the responsibility into adult life and make Weymouth, you know, a part of their future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Phil Watts, please.
Well, most of you know me from old, but I'm Phil Watts. I'm a local resident, been here 24 years, a former officer at Weymouth Borough Council. I'm actively involved in the steering group and have been since the start. I'm also on the homes and jobs theme groups, 2 areas that I believe passionately about. With the latter, having a special interest in not just jobs, but also training opportunities for young people. And I will be presenting the section of the neighbourhood plan on the jobs and economy part later in proceedings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Penny Quilter, please.
Yeah, good evening. Yes, I'm Penny. I'm a resident from Rodwell, so I'm a resident volunteer. We are usually in hospitality when we're working, but we're currently supporting refugee families. I've been very actively involved in the community, particularly since COVID and lockdown, with a particular interest in environmental issues. And I've been very involved in the community section of the neighbourhood plan, as well as the sustainability items.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our the most recent member of the group, Michael Bevan.
Thank you. Michael Bevan. I am a former member of the Dorset County Council to 2016. And I moved here in Weymouth due to ill health to my wife's flat in Weston, where we both live, and intend to do so for the rest of our lives. I joined this group because I wholeheartedly support this plan, which will benefit Weymouth a great deal. Fortunately, my ill health has disappeared. It has been helped due to the fact that I walk my 37-kilo stuffy dog down the marsh 4 times a day, and I also attend the gym 3 times a week. I hope I can be of benefit to this group in the progress of the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And apart from the councillors who I think are known to the other councillors in the room, that's everybody who's with us tonight from the steering group. So as I said, members of the steering group will talk in turn about sections of the neighbourhood plan, and we'll take questions when they finish, with more general questions and discussions being addressed after the last presenter. And Chair, as we do have other items on the agenda today, I would recommend that you aim for a limit of an hour on this discussion, giving us a projected end time of 8:15. So councillors, if you would like to refer to Appendix A at this stage, and in particular the first 4 sections, I would like to hand over to Councillor David Northam at this point, please, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Northam.
Good evening all. This report that's before you seeks endorsement of the steering group's recommendation to move forward with the neighbourhood process, using the initial draft of the neighbourhood plan as the basis for the mandatory strategic environmental assessment, which I'm going to refer to as the SEA. We're fortunate to live in an area with internationally and nationally recognised natural environment. Because we intend promoting development near to these areas, under an EU directive, we are obliged to carry out an SEA. We've already completed the scoping study and have now pulled together the initial draft of the neighbourhood plan, which details policies and potential land use, which enables the full assessment, the full SEA assessment, to be carried out. You'll perhaps have seen that the plan, the initial draft of the plan, is still very much an in-work draft plan, and there will be significant opportunities to provide feedback on the plan, and together with the results of the SEA, a viability assessment, and ongoing discussions with Dorset Council and landowners, there will be changes. At each update stage, the draft plan will be approved by the steering group and put forward to the council for endorsement and then published online. We have engaged the public through publicity, survey, walkabouts, workshops and events. Our first survey a long time ago enabled us to produce a vision for Weymouth's future. We also broke our work up into 5 theme areas and produced an initial set of aims. Our second survey sought feedback on these aims and led to their being refined and a set of objectives supporting the aims being produced. Alongside this, we formed up theme groups involving representatives from Weymouth, both experts in their field, but also residents and councillors. And we conducted some analysis of the situation as reported to us through the surveys. In January this year, we held our third survey, which looked at land use and the overarching objectives around sustainability, environmental sustainability. This, together with the studies and analysis, has enabled us, with the support of our consultant Paul Weston, to produce a set of 52 draft policies, which you can see for the first time set out in the initial draft neighbourhood plan. The neighbourhood plan is being progressed in line with the statutory process set out in the National Public Policy Framework, and the next steps are that in August 2023, the steering group will update the plan, taking into account the SLA and further stakeholder feedback. On the 6th of September, the steering group will ask the full council to endorse publishing the pre-submission draft plan, which will then be subjected to formal public consultation over a 6-week period. The steering group will then consider the responses and form the submission draft plan. This will then go to the full council in the first quarter of 2024 for endorsement. Following this, the steering group shall submit the neighbourhood plan to Dorset Council, who will arrange a full 6-week consultation and independent examination of the plan to ensure it meets the basic conditions required of a statutory plan. Any amendment required by the examiner will be included in the final version of the neighbourhood plan, which will be subject to a local referendum conducted by Dorset Council in, I would say, the summer of 2024, early summer. Subject to this being favourable, the Weymouth neighbourhood plan will become a statutory planning document for the Weymouth area. Meanwhile, the steering group continue to provide regular updates to the Planning and Licensing Committee. At this stage, I'd like to pause and see if there are any questions around what I've said so far, and then I'll hand over. Good. Okay, I'll now invite Councillor Huckle to talk about the content of the initial draft.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Well, as previously stated, this is the initial draft of the neighbourhood plan. We've been advised by our consultant that it's sufficiently detailed to enable the strategic environment assessment to take place. The steering group recognises improvements to the structure, style and presentation of the document can be made, and they intend to do so over the next few months. The neighbourhood plan is intended, once complete, to set out the planning policy requirements and guidelines for the Weymouth National Neighbourhood Plan area. The public engagement told us that what was wanted was to protect our natural, historic and natural environment, have better paid local jobs, more affordable homes, and there's an estimate of somewhere between a requirement of 1,775 to 2,649, which is going to be quite a task within our area. And also strong local communities and address the climate and ecological emergency. The details of the public engagement will be captured in a supporting report called the consultation statement. Those concerns raised by members of the public and supported by evidence which cannot be addressed by policies within the neighbourhood plan will be captured as an aspirational statement. The intent of the neighbourhood plan is to be broad and balanced. The plan itself is grouped around 5 theme groups arising from the public engagement, and you'll be hearing about those next. The group has tried to balance these themes as they were broad support with all themes. Each of these themes has its own section in the neighbourhood plan. The third public engagement this year, the public confirmed that the approach makes the sustainable environment objectives cross-cutting and to the contradiction between the proposed land uses. Oh, sorry, bit of a mouthful. And to land use and land protection objectives. So, as you've already heard, there are 5 themes and they are about to. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Buckle.
Any questions? Before we proceed? Well,
Good evening again. Thank you, Colin. I'm Rob Cheeseman. I'm the theme lead for sustainable environments. And really this theme, as the name suggests, is about sustainability, environments, community resilience and climate and ecological emergency. There's been a strong presence of this theme throughout all of our consultations right from the beginning. Hence our vision echoes this and indeed echoes the United Nations definition of sustainability. The theme is present in around half of our 18 aims and associated objectives. And such was their primacy in the theme key objectives. They were elevated to being cross-cutting, as Colin has just said. So what exactly are these objectives? I think it's worth stating what they are. Number 1 is about carbon neutrality, that all new development is expected to minimise emissions of greenhouse gases and be as near to carbon neutral as possible. The second one is about biodiversity net gain, and that all new developments are expected to include measures to conserve and enhance biodiversity of the area. The third one is about resource efficiency, that all developments are expected to maximise the sustainable use of natural resources, the reuse and recycling of other resources and minimise energy consumption and waste. And the fourth and final one is about climate change management, that all developments are expected to result in no increase in the risk of flooding and provide adequate resilience to extreme weather events. So these and other objectives have in turn driven some draft policies in our plan that relate to green spaces, sustainable tourism, sustainable construction, renewable and community energy schemes, walking and cycling, public transport, electric vehicle infrastructure, community growing and others. So why is this theme, you may be thinking, in a plan about land and building use? So first and foremost, as has been mentioned, we are in a climate and ecological emergency as declared by this council, Dorset Council, the British government and many governments around the planet. And concerns about this actually came through really strongly in our consultations. So the public themselves, our residents, they raised concerns about the degradation of green spaces and biodiversity, the effects of air pollution, the threat and impact of flooding, the threat and impact of severe weather, the quality and availability of water, to name just a few. If that's not enough, the framework governing all planning in England, the National Planning Policy Framework, has an environment objective that talks about protecting the environment, improving biodiversity, being prudent with natural resources, minimising waste and pollution, adapting to climate change and a low carbon economy. Hopefully you can see some kind of crossover there. Furthermore, the Centre for Sustainable Energy's guidance on planning, neighbourhood planning in a climate emergency says a plan that doesn't consider radical reductions in carbon and doesn't help build resilience to, for example, flooding, like a boat will simply not be fit for purpose.
Is there much more to say?
No, I'm literally rounding up now. Sorry, Chair.
Okay.
sorry, could I, we've gone well past what Rob is talking about on the screen. There's still, so if you can wind back on the screen, just to help people. We keep going back. We're still in this section here, and we're just nearing the bottom of the environmental sustainability.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Just pull up the last paragraph.
yeah, and finally, in terms of the reasons why Dorset Council, they're currently consulting on how climate change is taken into account, or how it might be taken into account in planning applications. And I urge you to engage with that if you can. So I think we're really happy and proud of the presence of this theme in the plan. Of course, the objectives will be tested by the strategic environmental assessment, and we'll be conducting our own green assessment. And as a side note, the steering group are currently actively engaged with Town Council's CEE working group as they draft the very first CE plan for Weymouth. And that's it. Thank you. Unless there are any questions.
Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the members of the Landscape and Green Space team group for their input, many of those members of the public, but also obviously councillors who have contributed. The evidence sourced on which we based the theme really were two strands. First of all, objective evidence from various research and reports in the public domain. And secondly, from the very important consultation feedback that we received through various events, whether that be walkabouts, public events and workshops that we have run through over the last 3 years. We really sought within that theme to make sure we had a bottom-up process, and I know that's very important to a number of councillors. And so we went out to the public, and the basis of the theme was very much their suggestions as to what we should incorporate. And on that basis, from the initial consultation, we focused on really 3 key aims, which broadly concern the preservation and enhancement of the landscape and the wonderful coastal environment that we have here. Secondly, very much around biodiversity, protection and enhancement through habitat conservation. If you can look after the habitat, then the wildlife will look after itself. Connected green and blue infrastructure was also important. That connectivity, not only for wildlife, but also for people in terms of responsible public access. And we've allowed for that in our policies. Those policy areas are really critical to the strategic environmental assessment that you've heard Colin speak of earlier. The first and the second consultation in particular demonstrated the importance very, very clearly from the feedback we received of the public to the preservation and protection of the open countryside, the green spaces that we are fortunate to have in Weymouth as well as our coast. And whilst many of those already have various designations, statutory amongst others, the neighbourhood plan can go further, particularly to protect some of those areas, smaller areas, which are potentially overlooked, but nonetheless extremely important to the various communities that you represent. And I'm pleased to say that one of the key policies we can adopt within a neighbourhood plan that has real weight is that of local green space. You will see before you in the documents that under WMP 11, so there are 46 submissions resulting in 39 sites being proposed for designation. That represents around about 55 hectares of land, and I'm particularly grateful to residents who got involved, a number of residents meetings and site meetings, and particularly I think also I should mention Councillors Dickinson and Huckle, who have been forefront in arranging some of those meetings and helping us to get residents together. We believe the majority of those will meet the necessary criteria. We've also included 7 sites from the already made Southern Points neighbourhood plan, and there are 5 sites that have been identified by the public through consultation, but for which submissions have not been received. I'm happy to work with councillors and members on the public in ensuring those submissions are put forward. And finally, really to mention the importance of wildlife habitat, which again came over as just how highly valued that is by the public within Weymouth, and therefore thinking about new development, and there will be new development, we have to get a balance, but we need to make sure it's in the right places and carried out in the right way. And therefore policies there account for the protection of existing habitat, as well as for the creation of new appropriate habitat in those areas and within those developments. The Environmental Act the government has passed recently with the minimum biodiversity net gain of 10% will help, but there are things we can also do through specific policies and intend to do so, for example, on wildlife corridors and our river and floodplain meadows. Let's not forget the health either of people, and for the health and well-being of people, it's really important that they have access to green space. So again, within development, let us retain much of what already exists, but also build on that within those developments. The people of Weymouth have made it very, very clear the level of support they have for these sort of policies within the confines of a neighbourhood plan. We've sought to do what we can within land use policy to actually represent those views. And hopefully moving forward, you'll now give us the opportunity to support this and to pass on to the next formal stages of this engagement. Thank you. Are there any specific questions?
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
It's me again. So I'd like to move on and talk about development and homes. Most neighbourhood plan and local plans talk about housing. We were determined from the start to talk about homes. And when people talk to us about this, they talked about the homes that they wanted, particularly for their children. So we did produce back in 2022, which the full council approved, an affordable homes paper that highlighted the chronic shortage, the chronic need for affordable homes in Weymouth. And this was based on the 2021 housing needs analysis, and Colin has referred to some of those numbers. Since then, the demand for rented accommodation has grown, whilst the supply has diminished. The neighbourhood plan looks to increase the supply of affordable homes, particularly social housing on sites within the defined development boundary and reluctantly outside the defined development. Policy 26 talks about development on exception sites. These are sites which normally would not be considered for development, but because of the need for more affordable homes are being considered. We're trying to balance development with protection. Colin's mentioned the 54 hectares that's under consideration for the, 55 hectares that are under consideration as local green space. Well, those 6 sites outside the development boundary amount to 47 hectares. So we're actually looking to protect more land than we're considering outside of the development. And I don't think we will be able to proceed on all of those sites outside the development boundary because it's difficult. They've not been built on for good reasons. They're difficult and they're treasured in some instances. This is a difficult compromise we're getting to. So specific sites that are under consideration was published in January in the site assessment process paper, which is your appendix A3. Discussions with landowners are ongoing, and discussions with Dorset Council as both the landowner and the local planning authority, we're hoping will restart. Within the defined development boundary, the steering group are looking to also maximise the amount of social housing that is brought forward. Policy 21 sets an ambitious change to policies regarding developer contributions to affordable homes. The steering group are aware of the government's First Home initiative and wish to develop a policy relating to the application of this in the Weymouth area. This should reflect the housing needs analysis assessment, i.e. that is to focus on homes for rent, as a housing needs analysis shows buying a house is out of reach of many of our local people, and renting is only possible with benefit support. The steering group wants affordable homes to be prioritised for local people and people working in key employments. We'll have policies that say that. Not only will these policies and land allocations be subject to the SEA, but will also require a viability assessment to ascertain whether these sites are financially viable. There was a lot, so just moving on, there was a lot of feedback that we had on the number of empty properties, both vacant and second homes, and the increase in holiday lets, which is limiting the supply of homes for long-term rent and ownership. And so there are draft policies addressing a principal residency criteria and regenerating buildings and sites that are underused. It's recognised that regulating an excess of second homes is complex and welcome the work under consideration at Dorset Council on this. I'd ask if there are any questions on this topic. So I omitted to thank the members of the homes theme group. I will do so now. Only a few of them are present tonight, so thank you for your contributions, and we'll be following up as we move forward. I next ask Phil Watts to come and talk to you about the jobs and economy section. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Madam Mayor, Madam Chair, councillors all, thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm going to speak to you about the jobs and training and local economy theme group. The starting points, we're all familiar that Weymouth's economy is dominated by lower paid employments, primarily in retail, hospitality and tourism. And there is a significant amount of outward commuting to Dorchester and other areas for employment purposes. Unemployment and lower paid work are a significant local issue. Indeed, employment and skills was identified in community consultations as the most important single issue for Weymouth residents. The lack of good quality jobs and training opportunities was identified by 57% of respondents as critical for Weymouth's future. And indeed, the steering group agree with that. The loss of key employment opportunities since the Navy departed in 1999. Newlook relocated the vast majority of its operations to London and Midlands in about 2012. And even the loss of the former Borough Council vacating North Quay in 2012 caused a significant drain on both primary and secondary employment opportunities, locally and accessible to residents. Whilst the 2015 local plan, which we all know is well out of date, has identified several key employment sites in and near Weymouth. Only the Mount Pleasant Business Park is the primary site, with the Granby, Link Park, Littlemore Extension all being outside the neighbourhood plan area. It's therefore necessary that we are as creative as we can be to create opportunities for better skilled employment within the existing neighbourhood plan area. Indeed, the Dorset Strategic Economic Strategy recognises major employment opportunities that could be derived from mixed-use redevelopment of locations both adjacent to the town centre as well as outside of it. This is reflected in the local plan with policies for key areas of employment around the station and from the Honorary car park, the along Custom House Quay and the Brewery waterfronts, within the Ferry Peninsula redevelopment, if it ever happens, and along Westway Road and on North Quay. These are all opportunities that should be considered. There is consensus locally that the town centre has an important role to play also in the future life and well-being of the town overall, but needs a significant revitalisation to do so. The Weymouth Master Plan of 2015, prepared by the former Borough Council, made a good start. It identified a range of regeneration proposals that will deliver many new jobs, as well as homes and other activities, and revive the fortunes of the town centre. However, much of the potential identified by the master plan remains unrealised. The master plan needs refreshing to take account of the very discernible changes in culture, fashions and habits, but regrettably this is outside the gift of the neighbourhood plan. The neighbourhood plan, though, also needs to look outside the town centre, recognising the breadth and extent of the neighbourhood plan areas and the opportunities that lie within it. It follows that this is where there are a number of key policies that we have already derived, 10 in total. And whilst we have to admit that a lot more work needs to be done in terms of the jobs and local economy section of the plan, there are key policies that I draw your attention to. These intend to protect business premises within the neighbourhood plan area, unless it is clear that they are redundant and no longer needed. There's policies that favour development of new businesses and the expansion of existing businesses on brownfield sites, which seek to facilitate home working practices as well. These could be in new large scale or small scale developments where we either look to encourage mixed use residential and employment developments, or indeed on smaller scale developments where we look to encourage provision of residential properties together with integral office accommodation or workshop space. There's also policies which look to encourage workshop space and business hubs, looking to support creative and new businesses being set up in the town, which will benefit both the ongoing, which will help support other businesses, providing skills and opportunities accessible to local people. Policy WNP 36 specifically addresses the town centre, which, as I say, we maintain is important. It relates to the existing tourism and leisure offer, which needs to be maintained and in ideal world enhanced to create a year-round offering. And we look to also be ambitious through the neighbourhood plan in promoting new opportunities for offshore renewable energy projects, providing support, so facilitating development within the neighbourhood plan area for low and zero carbon projects. That's a nice synopsis, I hope, of our ongoing work in terms of the jobs section. If anyone has any questions, I'll happily ask them or answer them if I can.
Councillor Lambert has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Correct me if I've got the wrong end of the stick, but there's reference to removing car parks and developing them, which I'm in favour of. But what fills me with horror is the possibility of multi-storey car parks. Am I off beam on this?
I think you probably are off beam. Obviously, everything is very much in the melting pot. We're looking, as I say, specifically from a jobs point of view, to provide enhanced opportunities for local people. The hope would be that they could commute from or travel from where they live within the town council neighbourhood plan area to accessible employment opportunities without the need for cars. There may be opportunities in the melting pot to look at to evaluate what car parking is required. But this is where the neighbourhood plan needs to look at and consider everything in the round, dealing in seeking to address the objectives outlined following the public consultation.
Could I add one more thing there, that we've also identified the benefit of regenerating the Mount Pleasant Park and Ride, which would provide parking during the peak period, relieving pressure on the town centre car park, potentially relieving the, we were very pleased when Dorset Council submitted that as part of the Levelling Up Fund bid. We just disappointed, as I'm sure they are, that it didn't go forward through that route. So we're hoping that it can come forward through other. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
So next it's Penny. Oh, it's,
Thank you very much. I'm hopefully going to be brief. I'd like to just try and bring out some main points and identify sort of how some of the feedback from the public engagement has influenced this section of the plan. So the importance and the diversity of our communities in the plan is very important, and it has been a consideration right from the beginning. Communities and the people of Weymouth have really come out and said this to us. And it's important to know that although sometimes the focus seems to be on houses and town centre issues, we have tried to cover all the different and diverse communities in our area. And the characteristics that identify each area to residents are also important, and what differentiates one area from another. So these are all things that the neighbourhood plan intends to recognise and to try and protect. And policies throughout the neighbourhood plan should reflect this when you look at them. In terms of the communities, there are 11 policies, WMP 41 to WMP 52 are the community policies. There is a focus of, when you look at them, on transport and traffic and community facilities, and it also includes community energy. Ultimately, all the policies in the plan affect all, the communities we live in. So it's difficult to sort of just pull out one area that communities, because obviously they're affected by all of them. What is interesting, that although communities are very different, when we talk to different communities, there were concerns that came up that were shared by them all. Homes, obviously, and a concern about homes that local people can afford, and year-round employment opportunities. Green space, recreation facilities. These have obviously already been covered, so I'm not going to go into them. But what I do want to say is that the areas have, so these areas have specific themes of their own, but they were recurrent topics when we were in discussion groups. So when we were walking around and talking to people, when we had events where we were actually sort of talking to members of the public within their community settings. I think it's important to recognise, and I think we've already sort of touched on it a bit with the question, around the car parking and the car park, that there are tensions, not only in the provision of homes, but also around transport and traffic, cycling infrastructure. There are competing demands, there are competing needs, and within all of this, there's a need to compromise and balance all of this, particularly as we're not just looking at the now, we're having to look ahead into the future. The other aspect that comes out of communities is that obviously there are only certain things that a neighbourhood plan can cover, and a lot of the things that people within communities are concerned about and not within the remit of the plan. We feel it's really important that these are not lost, and that they will be tenancy within the plan, so that people will, we need the voice of Weymouth to come through. It's also very easy to get stuck on the challenges and to focus on those. I think it's really important to mention that there was some really strong public support for some areas. So within the communities section, allotments and local facilities. So we're talking about, shops, health services, provision of venues for young people, all came through as things that, all communities wanted. They were desirable, they wanted them, but they also wanted them accessible, not a long car journey. Ideally you want to be able to walk. You don't have to put your dog in the car and take it for a walk. And same for your children, you want them to be able to walk the book. So it's not perfect, it's not complete, and I would just say that there's an invitation for somebody who cares about the community to work with us to help shape how this plan develops going forward, because I think I think there's a lot of hard work that's gone into this, and it would be really good if we could have a little bit more support from some sections which maybe haven't been as well represented as others. So that's just a little challenge I'll leave everyone with. Thank you very much. I'm not expecting a question, I'll leave it.
Thank you very much. That sort of runs through the sections in the neighbourhood plan. There is in your agenda papers a item on the pathfinding program. I'd like to leave that until after. That's an information item. I'd like to leave that until after we've discussed the neighbourhood plan and taken any more questions. Before we do that, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank all those people who have been involved in the neighbourhood plan, the 5 theme groups which comprise local residents, business interest groups and representatives of both Dorset and Weymouth Council, who gave freely of their time and brought their expertise and local knowledge to the gathering and analysing evidence for our plan. Lara's mentioned the 6 schools who use materials that she produced based upon our local plan. Matt, one of our local teachers, his geography group were involved in that process. So we've managed to get out there. We haven't universally gone to all the schools of Weymouth, but we've managed to get to some of them, and we feel we have a representation there. And lastly, of course, I'd like to thank all the residents who did respond to our surveys, which at times I know were a little bit troublesome in terms of understanding and lead. So apologies for that. It's not a simple process. Thank you for taking part in it. There is an impact assessment statement. Would you mind going through that, Jane?
I think in the interest of brevity,
Yeah.
I probably won't go through, but I'm sure members have taken the opportunity to read all the background papers and will be able to see the clear benefits and positive impacts of the neighbourhood plan itself.
Open to questions.
Okay, if I may, Chair, we do have Mr. Brett Spiller in the room who wishes to ask a public question, and I wonder if he could be permitted to ask that now that the presentations are completed.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, please come forward.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to again convey congratulations and commend the steering group for all their hard work. We have participated on behalf of a range of organisations, local businesses, landowners, even in the neighbourhood plan process at various different points. And we've seen all the hard work that's happened, particularly around collating a detailed evidence base, identification of key issues and focused consultations. Very much applaud the research identifying the chronic need for affordable homes in the town, which we've found incredibly compelling. And I'm here today representing Bellway Homes, who again have participated in the process at various different times. So the first sort of question we've got is very much around affordable homes delivery. Very keen to see some of the issues around that addressed. And I think one of the key points that I just want to convey, perhaps ask a question for you, Chair, if I may, is that whilst exceptions sites policies are very much to be applauded as part of the solution, that mechanism is already available through the local planning process, generally the planning process. There's a real opportunity for the neighbourhood plan to allocate sites, including changes to the boundaries of the existing settlement boundary. I know it's been conveyed in terms of looking at sites on the edge of the existing urban area, but it's just really to check that through the SEA process, there will still be the opportunity for the steering group to explore the option of allocating sites rather than the exceptions route. As I say, the reason for that is it just gives a lot more confidence and certainty in terms of delivery of new homes coming forward, including a bias towards affordable units as well.
Thank you.
I do have a further question. It's a relatively short one, but I don't know if you want to take them one at a time. Okay.
I think it would be helpful if you could ask them both now, and then we can respond to both together and move on to councillor questions.
Yes, thank you. The second question was very much around the individual themes. So again, applaud the 5 themes that have been identified. I think as we've already heard today, and I do take great comfort from listening to the presentations, but there's a real opportunity to bring those together so that all those themes are integrated. They tend to miss some bits when it's compartmentalised. So for instance, the focus on homes. Actually, there's a number of potential sites that can deliver more than just affordable homes. They can deliver things such as allotments, opportunities for new training, extensions to nature parks, access to open space in the interest of health and well-being. So just hoping for further refinement of the neighbourhood plan, we will see the integration of some of those themes and where the benefits can be optimised, and there's an obvious opportunity there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Those things are all being looked into, I assure you. And David, would you like to respond to?
Between myself and Paul, we will respond. So in order to identify the maximum number of affordable homes, we looked at the government's change in legislation. It's no longer rural exception sites. There's also now the opportunity to have first home exception site or entry level sites. And on those, they can be bigger than was previously identified, therefore provide more houses and potentially 100% affordable homes. That's where we are at the moment. And we've made that clear to the landowners we've talked to in those circumstances. But we recognise that viability may drive some compromise, and also there may be some offsets that's been identified. So we will look at a range of possibilities, but if we change from what we've identified in the neighbourhood plan, we will be coming back to the council, and I anticipate that we may have to present some of these options to the wider Weymouth public ahead potentially of the formal consultation in September. Would you like to add anything before?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. If I may, Chair, I'll just answer question one, and it'll be very brief. Or the briefest of answers is to that question, yes, the SEA will be used, I expect, to test reasonable alternatives. So part of the next stage is to take the findings of the site options analysis and those sites that may be suitable for development, either within the plan period or beyond, and then to apply to it all the criteria in the SEA framework which relate to environment and community issues, and to exercise a judgment as to the scale and the location that is most appropriate. And those findings will be in the public domain and will be the basis on which we will then make decisions as to whether we allocate sites or have a more general criteria-based policy approach.
Thank you, Paul.
Does that address your question?
It does, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Ball. No.
Some teacher voice instead. Just very quickly on page 44, I think it's WNP08, which talks about coastal recreation areas. Just quickly, I'm just interested in why the beachfront isn't one of the highlighted areas for that, what the criteria were.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
essentially, because they say we've taken the bottom up approach as suggested in that area, but it didn't come forward from the public. There may be other criteria we look, particularly cliff top recreational areas. It's a fair point, but as with, for example, Greenhill Gardens, you know, such as that, it did not come forward in the public submission. So we've tended to stand back and try to represent what the public has wanted. There is, of course, the opportunity moving forward to include some of those areas, because we're not at the regulation 17 stage yet, formal consultation.
Now, I'd add to that, we've had a bit of a debate whether a beach is green space. It's a very attractive space for people to, and we've had a bit of debate on that. So we tended to not include it in the list because it's a developed area. If you notice, all those other areas are not developed, and that's why the actual policy says we shan't develop on these areas except for particular purposes. Whereas on the seafront, we expect there to be ongoing development around seafront type uses.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce, we have that question.
Yeah, again, I'll use the loud voice. When the word affordable is used an awful lot, and I'm a bit of a stickler for this one, I would like you, just for public interest, to clarify what you mean by affordable, because affordable, according to most property developers, is still 14 times the national average wage. And considering that Weymouth has the highest poverty wages in Dorset, I'd like to know how you, as a group, have clarified affordable.
The definition of affordable housing in terms of the planning policy is that which is in the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework. So that's the one we are using to define affordable housing and the types of housing that come under that umbrella term. Unfortunately, what that doesn't do is actually take into account what people can actually afford to pay for affordable housing and how accessible it is. that work has been done to an extent by the housing needs assessment, and it's been very clear from the evidence I've seen that if we are to address the affordable housing issues of Weymouth over the next 10 years, then most affordable housing should be in the form of social housing for rent.
Yeah, I'd add to that, that we've identified a local connection policy. So that if you like, when homes come up for rent, a local connection criteria is applied rather than the standard Dorset criteria. And the main difference, I would say, is that in the standard Dorset criteria, it says anybody moving into the area for employment is eligible to receive social housing. Whereas we're trying to identify it to be focused initially on key workers, and there'll be a ripple of scale there, and that's yet to be published, and we intend working with Dorset Council on precise definition. It is that $60 question about how do you deliver affordable homes, and what we hope is that by increasing the supply, it might affect the price. It is also true that sadly, the deficit between what people can afford and what these house prices cost is picked up through housing benefit, which is picked up by the government. And there were some staggering figures being published today about how much money that costs. So it is costing billions. I don't remember the exact numbers. So making houses more affordable benefits us all as across the communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Gray, please.
Thank you, Chair. David. Can I just add my thanks? I think I'm sitting here thinking, God, it's a really complicated subject. So, and David and Colin, and also Rob, Colin, Phil, and Penny, you know, great presentations and a good start, I would say. I've got Penny's words ringing in my ear about don't focus on the challenges. Unfortunately, as councillors, that's what we do. So I've got two questions. We're looking to be schooled a bit on affordable homes percentages, David, because my understanding is in the draft local plan for Dorset Council, the town centre is going to be 25% and the outside of the town centre is 35%. Now, just clarify for me, can the neighbourhood plan influence the local plan percentages?
I'll give an answer and I'll let Paul correct me.
Okay, that's question one.
So with the Dorset local plan being put back in its timescale, we changed our reference for the neighbourhood plan to the extant local plan, which is the West Dorset Weymouth local plan of 2015, which says 35%.
Yeah.
In terms of what it says is in the proposed Dorset local plan, at the moment that's been parked and the figures may change that are in there. So we can't predict what they may or may not say. When we have our discussions with Dorset Council, I'm sure we'll have some of those discussions that you've talked about. We see a need to maximise the number of affordable homes and not diminish the number of homes. We've mentioned the viability assessment, and unfortunately that might yet block us in the ear and cause us to change, because no homes is worse than some homes. But there again, it's a 17-year plan, and if you develop the land without affordable housing, you no longer have land that could in future be used. So once you use it, it's gone. So it's really difficult stuff. I'll now let Paul.
I think that's a local politician's answer.
Oh,
Which was no.
Quite a simple answer is yes, it can be, but it is down to that viability testing and evidence. And if we carry out that, objectively, we are advised that 35% or 40% is reasonable, taking into account the condition of the site and the design factors which may lead to higher density in certain places as well, of course. then we can include a policy that will specify a different percentage requirement for affordable housing for that in the local plan. It would obviously have to be caveated though, with to say that we would expect the development to achieve that percentage, but recognise there may be circumstances that the developer may bring forward to justify it being less, but that's something of a negotiation.
Viability
But if we can do the viability testing first, we can put down the marker and say to the developers, you have to prove to us you can't achieve that. Rather than giving at the first stage.
Yeah, so I'm sort of making a suggestion that if we do get that to 35%, then we, given the comments from my colleague here about affordable, though, can we skew it towards social housing and social rent? So can we specify in the policy that we want higher social housing, higher social rent within that, which would then last 17 years? So that would be the way of influencing that.
We can and we are attempting to do so.
Thank you.
It does decrease the amount of money that developers make from sites.
Yeah, what a shame.
And I agree with you, but it needs testing.
Yeah, my second question, David, is I see the word car park a lot in this, and because I'm privy to in discussions at Dorset Council, I'm sort of asking the question, will the neighbourhood plan team ask Dorset Council for a sort of capacity forecast? Because as you well know, the key to unlocking car parks in the town centre is whether the park and ride works, because without that, the capacity will be too strained. Given the peninsula issue, if we don't go up, we have to have the park and ride in play, take that capacity. So in the neighbourhood plan evidence base, will you talk to Dorset Council about their capacity numbers, because they do have them?
Yes, simple answer, David.
Thank you.
And it is also true to say that within the existing local plan, there's talk about using car parks, and it forms part of the estimate for the number of homes that can be produced in Weymouth. It isn't just the neighbourhood plan suddenly deciding that car parks would be good to build homes on.
Yeah. No, I'm looking for the two to mesh together, so that we've got a sort of congruent plan, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hope, please.
Thank you very much. Someone's got a mic on. I can talk about it. First of all, thank you, Madam Mayor, for having me speak, and I just want to really second some comments that have been made this evening, and that's to thank the Neighbourhood Plan Working Group for bringing the process forward this far. And I know a lot of them have been involved since the opening of this group, and you know, I walk around with many of them around my patch to look at input into this plan. But one thing I just want to really pick up and applaud at this point is the fact that they have gone out and engaged with young people in our community. And I think that was so important, because this plan is going to be with us for a long time, and we hope those young people will remain in our communities. And it's really important that that plan is something that they will support and get behind and works for them. And to that, my question to the group is, as this develops, will you work with our youth council, who we've got 3 representatives here tonight, as a mechanism to continue to get young people's views and develop the neighbourhood plan as it goes forward?
Who'd like to respond? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All of us would say yes.
Councillor Harris, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask a difficult question, but before I do that, I'd like to give us a bit of hope that the last question that Councillor Gray was asking and was answered. We did have a planning committee meeting last night, and we were promised most faithfully that the cabinet were going to be working very closely with Weymouth Town Council in future in order to get their programme of development working with us, because they didn't want to go through the way in which we had to deal with that last night. So we're looking forward to working with the new cabinet member, who will be working closely with Weymouth in order to try and achieve some of the things that have been expressed tonight. So that's a positive thing that came out of planning last night. I think also clearly this plan is one of the biggest neighbourhood plans in the country. We've heard how the communities are working together, might be anticipating, this is where we want a green space, this is where we want an allotment and things like that for a smaller area. And that's very positive. But of course, it's a town plan that's got to be produced. And that's bound to bring its conflicts and its competition between communities to get whatever resources might be available. Have you got any thoughts on how you're going to be dealing with that? Before you answer that question, can I just also add my thanks to the immense work that you've all been doing, and what you've shared with us tonight, I think has been fantastic. So thank you all very much for the hard work that you've put in to the work so far. I know you've got plenty to go, and it will be another hard year ahead of you, but you know you've got our support behind that. So please carry on the good work you've been doing. Any thoughts about how you manage as a large community with the smaller communities?
Oh, if I may, I think I serve as the objective and honest broker at this table. And I'm the one taking the overview and all the time ensuring that the approach is balanced, but in the end, it's for the benefit of the whole of the neighbourhood area, not for specific sub areas, although we hope that all will benefit, of course, from a solid set of policies which will drive development across the area for the next 10 years and beyond. And just to add a little to what you said, first of all, be assured that the draft neighbourhood plan will be discussed at length with Dorset Council as part of the next stage. They will be heard and their suggestions will be taken on board, because we don't want to get to the end of the process and find ourselves in conflict with the local planning authority, which is Dorset Council. So we are fellow travellers on this route and we're working closely with them.
Thank you.
And the only bit I'd add is that it's been evident to us doing this plan that Weymouth is not homogeneous, which is a fancy word for saying there are lots of different parts of Weymouth that are very distinct and different. So it isn't a one size fits all, and therefore there may be some of these conflicts, but at the moment we think that we've managed to say in areas where such and such pertains, then this must apply or should apply. So we've tried to make it not everywhere, but pertinent to particular issues.
Thank you very much. Can I move the recommendation, Madam Chair?
We've got 3 more people waiting. Councillor Ferrari, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I add my thanks to all of the efforts on the part of the community volunteers. It's clear that you all bring really substantial care and concern about the topic areas to the table, and I'm grateful for that. Also very supportive of Weymouth development and neighbourhood plan. Neighbourhood plans give residents a chance to say how their communities develop, and a result of a small increase in income for the town from development. Indeed, I did the Sutton Points neighbourhood plan from start to finish. And as you'd expect at this point, there's a but I think Weymouth have gone about the neighbourhood plan in the wrong way. The people who know best what's needed in town are the residents, not the council. They should have asked the people of Wyke about what Wyke wanted, the people of Bradipole, Upway, Preston. As has been said, it's a non-homogeneous town, and building from the top is the wrong way to do it. It's start from bottom. That isn't what was done. There was a neighbourhood walk in each area for a couple of hours. I went on the walks in Liverpool and Preston, lots of councillors, committee members, but I doubt there were half a dozen residents on either walk. Based on that, the town council and building consultant produced their plan. The plan represents what Weymouth Town Council want, not what the people of Weymouth want. If the strategy wasn't bad, the process would have been even worse. Elected Councillor Bergman, who was on the Councillor Bergman, who was on the Neighbourhood Plan Committee, was told he was no longer needed, and a resident was appointed by the committee to replace him. Councillor Dickinson was allowed to place on the subsidiary committee, who was asked to sign a gagging order forbidding him to make public the documents being produced by the committee. He was grateful he refused, as did at least one non-council member of the committee. We produced 2 freedom of information requests to make the information public, both of which were rejected on technical grounds. That isn't the way you do governance. The council finally published its intentions in an online consultation that only lasted 2 weeks. We delivered lots of leaflets and had a meeting in Preston to let people know, but we're unaware of similar things happening elsewhere in the town. How many people actually knew a consultation was going on? The consultation was not an attempt to seek public opinion. It was designed to get the answers that it wanted. To prove the plan was popular. For example, the question number 1 was effectively, do you want new houses to be energy efficient? We could answer no to that. The question was simply to get a yes answer. That's the way the council went about producing the plan is flawed. It's not surprising the plan itself is poor. They proposed hundreds of houses on sites in Preston on a site ruled as unsuitable by Dorset County Council. There are hundreds more right up against the markets in Lodmore. They proposed building on hundreds of car parking spaces in the town. Playing glibly space for the chair.
This is not a question, is it?
No.
The section of the conversation was described by the chair as questions and comments from councillors.
But you are just having a diet like.
I'm making a comment here.
So all these people have done a lot of very hard work.
Uh,
I think Councillor Harris probably pointed that comes in.
Yes.
Can I continue, Chair?
We still have 2 people wishing to
Chair,
ask.
can I continue?
No,
Are you going to continue to ask a question or are you going to continue to talk to us?
This section of the agenda is not just for asking questions, it's for questions and comments from councillors.
Then you can continue.
Thank you, Chair. Once the plan was public.
excuse me, Chair, it says on the page up there that the amount of time available for public questions will be determined by the chairman. It doesn't say anything about public statement.
Thank
This is
you.
a councillor statement. Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, this doesn't fall under public questions. This is purely under councillor questions. It's discussion. of the item.
I'm trying to, I would have been finished, yeah. Once the plan was public, we sent out a leaflet and called a meeting. The leader of the council put out a leaflet accusing our leaflet of lying. His leaflet states that the plan includes between 168 and 191 homes in Preston. In 2017, Weymouth and Portland Council were looking at housing and said that you could build about 300 homes on the White Oliver site in this plan. In fact, the new site in Preston's a little bigger than that site, and there's an extra plot we know at the end, more down. According to the plan, this is 31 acres. In 2021, the average build density was 16.8 homes per acre across England. That would give 521 homes. There's a second site in Preston by Lodmore Reserve that's proposed for building. That's another 46 acres. As we said in our leaflet, the total of these sites would comfortably go over 1,000 homes, and we were accused of lying by someone who says between 168 and 191 would be built. A formal code of conduct complaint was made.
Can I please object to him misquoting things and telling things that are not true? There is no proposal to build any houses. There is a consultation going on as to whether things are possible. So can I ask him to not make any further mistaken identity of what's happening?
I firmly accept that criticism. My phrasing was loose. I'm apologies for that. A formal code of conduct complaint was made against all of the councillors identified on our leaflet. Another ganging attempt. This complaint was of course rejected by the independent inspectors. Once again, residents.
Point of order, it was not rejected. The officer in charge chose not to investigate because he viewed it as a party spat, and for that reason he did not reject it. He chose not to investigate.
Thank you.
Once we made residents aware of what the town council was doing, significant numbers filled in the questionnaire. The committee must not have liked the answers because they applied to Dorset Council's legal office to have many of these responses removed from the survey because they've been misled by our leader. Again, this undemocratic manipulation was rejected. It's ironic that many of the best informed residents who did not support the plan and those most knowledgeable residents are the ones whose views the town council seeks to exclude. What Weymouth Council should do today is stop paying consultants, go back to the thing and ask the people of Weymouth what they want from their town council. Stop trying to hide the facts from residents and pretending the council knows best. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Weller, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. My thanks, obviously, that goes without saying. I just, because this is so important going forward for the future of our town, and these young people are our future, certainly not me. I'd like to know from them and from their colleagues on the youth council and their friends at schools and colleges and everything else, do you feel that you've been represented? Do you feel that it's been inclusive to you? And do you feel, from what's gone on this evening, that
Councillor Weller, you can't ask three people that.
well, but they can tell me later, can't they? Because that's the important thing, and I need to get them to know that I want their opinion. We, not just me, we need to know that you feel part of this process, because this process is important to you and your generation. And that's what I wanted to ask. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Councillor Weller, it may be helpful if Lara can give a report on the extensive work with schools that she has gone in and engaged with large groups of young people and the feedback that's been received by the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group. And we can arrange to have something sent to you on that.
Thank you very much, Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton, please.
Thanks very much, Madam Chairman. I want to thank the members of the steering group who've done the immense amount of legwork on this, done their darndest to ensure that non-councillors are involved. I can't thank you enough, because you really have stuck with it, and it's hard. The discussion here tonight should be about how we provide homes, jobs, and environmental security for the next generations going forward. We've offered to meet with the councillors of Preston and Littlemore about the matter that they raise. We are at a loss to understand where they've got the facts, quote unquote, that they've circulated in their leaflet. They have refused to meet with us. This whole process is not about party politics. We have gone out time and again through every means possible, online, press, roadshows. We did this during a time of COVID, which couldn't be much harder. I just want to say to the young people here, and to the young people who can't afford a house, please write to your MP, get the planning laws scrapped, because we know that this government wants to make neighbourhood planning about nothing more than a style guide. I'd like to hear from Mr. Spiller and colleagues. If we have an aspiration for more percentage of affordable homes in our town, what does that do to the livelihood of our developers? Because at the moment, the market is in charge of providing for housing need. And that's a scandal. The only way to get the housing that people need is by getting all that money that's going on housing benefit to build publicly owned housing. If Dorset Council, if Weymouth Town Council built houses, we would have to sell those suckers. So we are bound up and trussed like turkeys. I'm very happy to meet with any councillor who has an issue. I would like to know where he got his figures from, because these are our figures. You want to meet, then let's meet. Luckily for all of us, Rishi Sunak thinks we should study maths until we're 18, and hopefully then we'll meet on common grounds. So this isn't the end. This is the beginning. This is continuation. And we as councillors and we as residents don't have to wait for planning law. In this week, I think it was the London Borough of Lewisham, 14 one-bedroom flats were built on the sites of disused garages for people with local connections. The amount that they pay to rent those is determined by what they earn. We don't have to wait to jump through the hoops which the Tory government has set in our way to get local housing possible. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Councillor Barrow, please.
I just had my question covered away.
Thank you. Could we go to the vote, please?
I'll propose it again.
Thank you. Could we all take a vote, please? Those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20,
21, Chair. Those against, please. 2. Any abstentions? Thank you.
So that is carried, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, do you wish to discuss the party finder programme?
If anybody would like to leave now that we've discussed that, please feel free to go. And we'll take the part finders and information.
So, may I also ask if the members of the steering group want to leave at this point? Thank you very much.
Moving on to item 9, could I pass it to the
It's an information item. If there are interested, take them. Otherwise, I'll shut up.
And you? Possible.
Tonight, David, was the chairman directed?
item 9, and Ian's going to address us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Because when members thought it couldn't get any more exciting, we're now going to talk about auditing. I will try and keep this brief.
Yes.
I would like to bring it to myself.
Okay, I'm going to take over for 5 minutes. Here we go. So we're on to confirmation of auditors. Yeah. And I'm going to hand over to Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This report in part has come on the back of the appointment of our new auditors, and they've highlighted some of the requirements which town and parishes have to conform to in respect of their internal auditing and external auditing. Some of it may seem a bit trivial, but I think members would just have to bear in mind that the legislation and regulations which we have to conform to also applies to those small authorities of 1 or 2 members of staff. So we're fairly fortunate in so much as when we consider the independence of our internal auditor, for example, we've got a very experienced person. Other smaller authorities rely on local people to do that for them. So we still have to ensure that we can provide evidence that we've appraised their independence, which we have. Within the report, there's 4 areas which we just need to provide evidence for in respect of internal auditors, which we would provide to the external auditors. I'm pleased to say that we believe that we've done what is required over the last year. The second part, which is a new requirement, which BDO, which are our external auditors, have requested, is we give consideration every year that there is no conflict of interest between us and our external auditors. An example of that would be as if we engaged
BDO to help us with some of the finance work. There may be a conflict of interest if they then came in and audited it. From review, we do not believe there's a conflict of interest. So we just need full council's recommendation that there is no conflict of interest. So all we're asking, Chair, is just to agree that our current internal auditors continue, and that we can confirm also that there's no conflict of interest between Weymouth Town Council and BDO, our external auditors.
Thank you, councillor Gray.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Oh, councillor Hope.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, we get councillor Lang. I could always get this done while Anne's away.
Don't come back. The mayor is in presence. Could I just ask a question resulting from that? That you said, I believe, that our external auditors asked us to double check, if you like, that our internal auditors didn't offer a conflict of interest. Were they suspicious of anything, or did they want just something around there that question?
So I think the conflict of interest, councillor Legg, my apologies if I didn't make that clear, was between BDO, our external auditors themselves, and ourselves. So when they come into audit us, our external auditors, there's no conflict of interest, and some of their staff have done some of the work for us, because obviously that would be a bit of a clash. So what they're asking us in respect of the internal audit is to provide evidence of independence, to provide evidence that the internal audit report has been considered by full council, which we do in June of each year, to ensure that the internal auditor is qualified to undertake the work which we do for the national engagement. So they ask us to check whether the internal auditors are independent and they're qualified, but the conflict of interest is between ourselves and the external.
And just to reassure you, councillor and council, all councils are being asked this. We've not been singled out for any particular reason. It's a blanket request for this year's audit.
That's the answer.
Right, I think we're ready to go to the vote now. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's all.
Thank you. Right, hand over to the town clerk, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we now come on to item 10, Youth Council logo. May I offer my congratulations to the 3 members of the Youth Council who have survived the meeting thus far. Well done. The facts are as before you in the report, councillors. I don't want to go through it in too much detail. You can see up on the screen there the version of the Town Council's logo that the Youth Council have designed. And with any use of our logo, amendment or adaptation of the logo requires sign-off by full council as part of our marketing and brand management. And the recommendation before you is that you agree that the Weymouth Youth Council may use the revised logo for their work, and that sign-off from the Weymouth Town Council communications team must be gained for materials bearing the logo, such as banners, leaflets, etc. Happy to respond to any questions, Chair.
Yes, councillor Furman.
I was going to propose we move to a vote, but I see councillor Legg might have a question, so we'll give way.
Can I ask, and maybe the answer will come from over here on my left, what the message is intended to portray with this slight amendment to the traditional original logo?
One you'd like to answer?
No.
What message is to be conveyed by this change in the logo?
Doesn't need to have a message. It's what they want.
It's saying what they want.
Why do they want it?
Yeah. Ask why do they want their own logo?
Why did you want your own logo, and who actually came up with it?
Daniel designed it, which is.
Yes.
And I don't know, I guess he just wanted to be a bit more different. Yeah.
Good reason. Good enough.
Thank you, Daniel. Would you like to say a word, or are you just going to sit there?
Yeah, I suppose move to vote. That's it.
Yes, we'll vote this.
For a reason.
Yeah.
All those in favour?
1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, Thank you, unanimous.
See, I didn't wear my councillor's badge tonight, but I still council badge. I might have known. Right.
And hopefully, Chair, if the young people, if the members of the youth council would like to leave now, we can release them back into the wild. Lovely. But, you know, you're welcome to stay. It's-
Pizza's
I
returned
have
here
a
though.
beach cleaning service level agreement funding.
So, thank you, Chair. So officers have been negotiating the beach cleansing SLA service level agreement with Dorset Council. So the work itself, the contract, the parameters of the contract have all been discussed already. I believe finance and governance. And what this is, you may recall that before we needed to bring the expenditure for Radical Park and Gardens back before you because financial regulations dictate that all expenditure, whether allocated budget or not, whether pre-agreed by committee or full council or not, needs to come before you if the expenditure is over £100,000. The expenditure for this item is £267,726, and so it does need agreement for expenditure over £100,000. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Can I move the recommendation?
Right, those in favour?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Honorary Freeperson, I can't see it, but my glasses.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the honorary three persons policy. This comes before full council, originally from the governance working group, and it has come to you recommended tonight by the Finance and Governance Committee. So the policy itself has been provided to you as Annex C. I won't go through all of the history, but this came around because there was a desire from some of the councillors to be able to recognise those members of our community who have gone above and beyond in their voluntary service for the community. So as I say, this came from the governance working group by Finance and Governance and is recommended to you tonight from that committee.
Do we have, would you like to answer?
No, we should speak to the item.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Thank you. No, someone still got a microphone. We'll try it out. Yes, now, I will not be supporting the policy as presented here. Reasons that I gave at the Finance and Governance Working Group, committee meeting, was that I do not agree that there should be limitations on the amount that we award. These awards will be presented on merit and will not be given away lightly. And I do not agree that we should put a limit on the amount we award, meaning that we can only have so many living freemen or free persons with the borough. Now, if we are lucky to have, and as we all hope, we live long into our lives, so maybe one day that we can enjoy a retirement, but I think for my working age, that will be very unlikely. You know, I don't want to stop more worthy people of this title being presented it just because there's 10 already living free people with the borough. So, as per the amendment I ran at Finance and Governance, I'd like to remove the limitations within the policy, meaning that there'll be no restrictions on the amount that can be appointed. The reasons given at F&G why this was lost was because, you know, we don't want to give too many away. Now, I'm sure any council in place won't hand these out freely with, you know, free will to anyone. They will be given as a high award or high recognition of people, but I don't agree that the limit should be in place.
Is that a proposal, councillor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Sorry, Can I speak to the main topic?
Yes, councillor.
No, I've moved amendment, it's been
It
seconded.
was an amendment, but it wasn't seconded.
It was seconded by councillor Berman.
Hand up first.
Hello.
Okay, you decide,
Can we
Chair.
bring
Can I
back
speak?
the, whatever it's called now?
That's okay. So councillors are permitted to speak to the amendment and councillor Northern and councillor Weymouth.
I agree with councillor Hope's concern that we shouldn't limit the number of people that might be honoured by the town. I think referring to them as honorary freepersons is a bit archaic. I'm not a huge one for pomp and circumstance, but I do think our history is very valuable, and we should respect that history as it was, not try and take this sort of bastardized version forward. So I think we should have an award for people, but I don't think it needs to be for freepersons, because that has sort of historical connections. And I know in here it said, but it will have no privileges. So why don't we just produce a certificate or a vote of thanks in a council meeting? It's so much easier to do. And it can be more spontaneous, I feel. So I find trouble with creating something which will occupy councillor time, and I think we can deal with the matter of praising people in our community much more efficiently.
Thank you. We do already do that with the mayor's awards.
And this came about from a desire to recognise more formally certain individuals who have gone far above and beyond that, which is recognised by the mayor's annual Community Champion Awards.
I can see members of the steering group who were sat behind me earlier, meriting such a thing, but I don't think it would be appropriate to spend.
Point of order, this isn't speaking to the amendment.
No.
This is speaking to the item, but we're supposed to be speaking on the amendment. Sorry, councillor, but it's true.
Councillor Wakefield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must disagree with councillor Hope on his amendment. We did think about this and we looked at examples from all over the place. Honorary freepersons is a parish council thing, so specific to us. The borough used to issue aldermen, which we have many examples of on the wall. This is the highest privilege we can bestow. It comes with no privileges, but it is not something we want to take lightly. Councillor Northern sort of alluded that there's quite a lot of people there might be. This is the very exceptional thing we can bestow on people. We can give out mayor's awards to everybody, but this is really special. And we looked at it and how to keep that exclusivity. When we drafted it, we have put this limit in, which is similar to other areas. It may be in 10 years' time, in 2033, the council go, we should have 8 instead of 6. And they can amend the policy because it's a council policy. It can be amended at any time. But for now, it's brand new to us. We shouldn't really be issuing 6 next year because that would devalue it. It is that high level thing. So I'm not saying it's a permanent limit of 6 individuals. And it may well be the council will add 2 next decade and 2 the decade after that to keep the numbers and people will live longer. But the reason it was drafted is to set that exclusive limit, that it really is something that we have to be really careful awarding. We need to, between us, when we do award it, really think carefully, is this one of the top 6 people in our town who deserves this very, very special activity?
Could I just say something? Is this about giving people credit for what they've done, or is it waiting for dead man's shoes? Oh, that one's dead, let's put another one in. Councillor Weller.
No, it's not dead men's shoes. Absolutely not. And coming back to the point of councillor Northern, this is exceptional, sustained contribution to the community of the entire town. So there are unlikely, I can't believe that if we really put our minds to it, the whole, I don't know how many we're here at the moment, 24 councillors. I don't think between us we could find 10 names that we truly believe have given exceptional, sustained
work to our community. And that's the point. We may know 2 or 3 this year. Possibly we'll think of 2 or 3 next year, but I doubt it. Possibly 2 or 3 the following year, but I doubt it. We're talking about exceptional, over and beyond and exceptional and sustained over a lifetime. So those people are likely to be in their 70s, in their 80s, because we are talking about a lifetime. It may be some amazingly courageous thing that somebody's done in their 20s. I do hope we never come to a point where somebody in their 20s is called upon to do something exceptionally courageous, because that will mean that we've got some tragedy going on. So yeah, I think that's the point. And although I see Councillor Ryan's point that we don't want to restrict ourselves to 10 or to 6 or to 8 or anything else, we're unlikely to find, I would be hard pressed to find 10 people worthy of this honour at the moment. It is exceptional, sustained effort, not last week they did something great. Thank you.
Any more questions? You have an amendment, Chair, that has been. Yeah.
Then by councillor like first.
We couldn't vote these, all those in favour.
This is of the amendment of removing the limits of 6 individuals and 4 organisations, so not the policy itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yes, against, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
So that's defeated.
Thank you.
So back to the substantive.
Yes. So back to that. Right, so could we please now have a proposer and a seconder for. Oh, did you sorry? Okay, thank you. It's been a long day. Could we please go to the vote?
So all those 4.
4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
All those against?
1, 2, 3.
Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So that's that policy is approved for immediate adoption. Thank you.
Information items, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the 2 standing information items before you, councillors, actions from the last meeting and the full plan. Just to remind you that the full plan is not a definitive list and is subject to regular change, amendment and revision. I'm happy to take any questions on actions from the last meeting or the full plan. Just to let you know, I have spoken now to the Chief Executive of the BID, who will be attending a future member briefing to talk to members on primary disorder in the town centre and how they work in partnership to address that.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether this was on the F&G agenda or whether it was full council, but do we have a resolution to the railway signage from the council yet, please? Because I can't see it on full council. I'm still worried that we're going to get from the.
We are still awaiting a draft agreement from both Dorset Council and South West Trains, who are landowners for some of the signage, but not all. We can, I believe it's on the finance and governance, but I will add it to full council.
Financial indicators and
Exactly.
Yes.
You didn't hear anything, did you?
No.
If we could just wind down in the full plan with the September full council item. could we add there to the list and the approval and pre-submission draft?
You may declare, we can finish the committee check. I've got to hit it.